Welcome to another Shopper Tech webinar, a service of the Shopper Technology Institute. I'm your host, John Karolefski. Thank you for joining us. Today we're talking about the future of shopper marketing. Where is this process going? How will emerging technologies affect shopper marketing? And just who are extreme shoppers? Joining me to answer those questions and provide a roadmap to the future of shopper marketing are three executives with GfK Shopper and Retail Strategy: Allison Chaltis, Bill Romania, and Rob Barish. Don't forget to type in your questions in the box in the lower left of your screen. They'll be answered along the way and at the end of the program as time allows. So without further ado, here is Allison Chaltis.
Thanks, John, and welcome everyone to our webinar. It's always fun to see lots of familiar names, and now you're out there listening. We hope you enjoy the next hour and learn something from it. There we go. So as John mentioned, our topic is really around owning the future of shopping and the future of shopper marketing. For those of you who know us, know that we've spent the last, 5 or 6 years benchmarking and studying into where the industry is going. And our real focus right now is into what we know for you is a very interesting and rapidly changing topic, which is how do we get smarter around smart shoppers, or think of it as shopper marketing in a digital world. So our purpose today is really to think about new ways we can leverage new technologies. And it's interesting because every time we talk about new technologies, they are just that, they are new. And they're doing a couple of things. The first is really changing the path to purchase. And so as you think about the old world of I planned, I shopped, I bought it, and I enjoyed, it's not that way anymore. We're bopping in and out of buying and using mode back and forth and doing so more and more with that device that's in our hand. Let me introduce my colleagues that are on the phone today. John already mentioned that I'm joined by Bill Romania and Rob Barish. Rob is one of GfK's leading digital technology experts. He spends his life studying mobile technology, e-commerce, the internet, and really understanding consumer and shopper dynamics behind that from a direct-to-consumer standpoint as well as from a business-to-business standpoint. And you'll hear his voice in a little bit. And then Bill Romania is here with me as a member of the Shopper and Retail Strategy team, and he'll come in when we start to talk about not just what insights have we gathered, but also what can we really do with them to translate those insights to action. Before we get into the stuff you really want to know, one quick reminder on us. And since you signed up for this webinar, you probably know what a GfK is, but we want to just do a quick overview so that you understand that we are part of a broad organization focused on integrating the relevant consumer, shopper, and marketplace insights to help you win at the point of sale. Think of this as a hybrid consulting and research team. We're all about the data and the insight, but in a way that's really focused on activation. I think you'll find that our insights today, which are really based on a bunch of industry benchmarking and broad perspective across clients, are relatively high level, but our challenge and our strength is really to think about then how do we bring it down to a tactical street level executional plan. And that's really what we're all about. And we do it in a way that is, obviously incorporating tried and true methods of understanding what's going on with the consumer and the shopper and thinking about high tech in very new and very different ways. So a conceptual point as we think about this interconnected shopper. And it's interesting because I heard a presentation last week that got me thinking a little differently. And we used to be thinking about we have brand marketing and we have shopper marketing and we have digital marketing and we have all kinds of perspective around different elements of the marketing mix. And now we're at the point where we're just marketing in a digital age. And everything that we do is digital, and it's impossible to separate our virtual worlds from our physical worlds, heavily due to the growth of mobile over the last couple of years. And the downside of that is it's hard and it's different. The exciting side of that is it's very challenging, it's very quick, and it makes our jobs an awful lot more interesting. So just a piece for those data-oriented folks who want to know what some of the upcoming points come from and our sourcing into some of this data. As we think about shopper marketing in the digital world and understanding where tomorrow's shoppers are going and seeing the future of shopper in a very different way, we have 2 ongoing industry benchmarking studies that are important sources for us, as well as our work across industries and client bases. The first is Future Buy, which is we're in the 4th year now of this ongoing shopper benchmarking. Depending on the execution, we have up to 2,000 shoppers in the U.S., and we've had a couple thousand in the European Union. And the focus is really on the combination of economic trends, technology, and the new shopper mindset, and we'll show you some of that in a minute. The second is industry benchmarking of folks like you. The most recent version, we had 250 respondents, 130 companies, and the purpose of this future scope work is not just to learn, which of course is very important to us, but also to start to quantify where we all need to focus as an industry, and really how do we get better together in terms of both insight development and activation at the point of sale. So switching then into the content for today, there's really 3 things. I'm going to take you through not just the setup, but a little bit more on the future of shopping and some macro trends. Rob's then going to take you through getting smarter on the smart shopper. And this is really a release of some just hot off the presses surveying that we've done, very focused on what clearly came out of last fall's benchmarking, which is we need to get better at mobile. And then Bill and I are going to come back and talk about so what and what do we do with it, and share some best practices from practitioners at retail that we think are just thought-provoking and help you better understand what you can do immediately and what you can learn from the environment. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about this extreme shopper. And John mentioned it earlier. And extreme shopping, we'll tell you what that really is in a minute, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to tell you. It means a whole new way of shopping and kind of pushing the envelope. The notion of this came from our shopper benchmarking and looking at new trends. But we also then have dug deep, and we've started to take a look at shopper journeys in new and different ways. And the purpose of studying new shopper journeys and really, qualitative deep dives into understanding how different shoppers buy different products and what are their pathways to purchase, it really serves 2 purposes. One is to understand how technology is changing shopping. The other is to understand how we can better use technology to understand the shopper. So think of it as next generation shopper research. And what we're going to do in each of these sections is just show you and give you a peek into some of our shopper journeys through some moderate tech videos. So please put your volume up and listen as we talk about Chris, the first of our shopper journeys.
Chris is an avid gamer. A few months ago he was browsing Xbox News on his Xbox when he saw information on 2 future releases, Skyrim and BioShock Infinite. At college the next day, his friends start talking about the 2 games. They think they both sound great. Whilst watching TV at home, Chris takes out his phone to do some research on the games. He searches for the game's title and, using the results, he reads the specifications, watches trailers and checks the release dates of the games. He then conducts a price comparison for both games on Google Shopper. He notices that Amazon has the best prices and he clicks through to the site. He trusts Amazon as a retailer because of previous good experiences and their fast delivery. Amazon has a pre-order special offer on the game, so Chris orders it there and then. Because he knows that Amazon has a mobile version of their website, he's able to continue watching TV as he makes the one-click purchase.
Okay, so as we think about that shopper journey then, we've started to look at a higher level. We have these deep dives in the journeys, and then there's the macro perspective of what are we seeing across shoppers. No surprise as you look at the slide that 2 things are really across shoppers' minds in everything that we do. The first is, the economy is still a reality in most of the world, and that's an obvious. So we're thinking differently about volume. We're thinking differently about the economy and value. The second is technology and the explosion of particularly mobile, and that's really where we're going to go now. The concept that is really important to understand from our benchmarking is there's a whole new way of shopping. And this extreme shopping notion that we talk about really comes from the upper, call it 40% of the population that is using technology to shop in new and different ways. There's three criteria, and we've got pages and pages of material on this for those of you that are already texting us that they want the slides and want more. We're happy to share those with you after the call, or you can send us an email and we'll send you our white paper. But there's really three characteristics at the high level that are important to listen to and think about. The first is obviously the extreme shopper is wired. They're connected, they've got their device in their hand at all times or real close by, and they're researching almost everything that they do in many different ways. The second, which is interesting but not surprising, is that shopping has become a competitive dynamic, and a lot of this is driven out of the value equation associated with the economic need. And it's really shopping as a sport. And it's, I'm in control, I can win versus the manufacturer, I can win versus the retailer, and I'm better because of it, which is a very important dynamic as we start to think about how do we market to these folks. It's not just price, it's I'm winning, and I feel smart about things. The third, which is the surprise, or at least it was to me, and the fact that it continues to be so, is that these extreme shoppers are very optimistic. If you only looked at the 2 points on the left, you might think that we've become a pessimistic, aggressive world in terms of shopping, and the answer is not necessarily true there. 1 out of 3 folks in the latest benchmarking that are extreme believe they will be better off in 12 months. Well, the general population numbers were less than 10%. So significantly more optimistic than general pop. And thinking about competition and technology with optimism, it really is about this device, this way of shopping online can make me build a better life for myself and my family and make the most of the money that I do have. So a couple other background points from the practitioner benchmarking that we think are important. At the end of the day, the chart on the left, we pretty much all believe that shopping is going to continue to change radically because of digital mobile. It's all different. Whether we are out there on our Note or our iPad, shopping online and acting very differently or not, we need to recognize that this is happening to us as an industry, and we can't deny it anymore. The challenge is there's great concern out there amongst the industry practitioners that this isn't necessarily a good thing. And 61% of the folks in the survey felt that what's happening is technology is shifting the power to the shopper, which is a fact, but that they're doing it to our detriment. And for us to really win here, we need to start thinking about technology as a positive. It is the world we live in, and so we need to embrace it and get with the program. And that's really an important point, is no longer can we try to fight it because it's here. Some of the behaviors that are definitely here that we need to recognize and figure out how do we change are first that we need to get at loyalty. We need to figure out how loyalty is going to become front and center in everything we do and in our relationships with shoppers, particularly online, and particularly online, on the go, mobilely. The point at the bottom here, 52% of extreme shoppers say they're less loyal because they shop around for value. Well, think about that. If you're wired and you're competitive, it's a lot easier and you're going to be a lot better at shopping around than someone who's doesn't have that same mindset.
We have a question that came in, Allison, one of the listeners. How much grocery industry data will be included for the rest of the webinar, along with specific research that the GfK has done?
From a grocery industry data, the databases we're using are heavily cross-category, and that includes not just grocery products, food, beverages, OTCs, households, but also technology, apparel, automotive, other things. So there's lots of broad data in here. In a few places in this webinar, we do go into some category-specific things, particularly on the use of mobile shopping across different categories. So there are a few pages that are category-specific, but given that we've got 300 registrants from probably 150 different companies out there, we've kept it at a macro level.
Okay, thank you.
So moving back into the flow here, the points on the right are things people are doing more, and particularly driven by technology. And I just want to kind of think back to over the last 20 years in the industry, we used to have tons of paper coupons, and those basically went away as we realized that with the exception of driving trial on new products, they weren't necessarily effective marketing vehicles. Well, now we're back to that game, and it's online, and it's clipless, and it's Groupon, and it's really, at the end of the day, bringing us to a coupon environment, and we need to change that, and we need to think about loyalty measures versus just immediate promotional activity. This chart's kind of interesting, and it summarizes an awful lot of data, but the point that will be very interesting to track over the next couple of years is how much overload is happening to shoppers and what does it do to their behaviors. So for example, here we see this is what shoppers are doing, and the numbers add up to far more than 100, and if we included every data point, you'd see that. And this means that people are going on general shopping sites. I'm looking at Groupon, I'm searching in Google, I'm shopping on Facebook, I'm going to Walmart.com, I'm going to brand sites at the same time, and I'm doing all of this in my search for a better buying process and better deals and the right products for me. And so that's interesting and exciting, but we're going to get tired of it. And so we need to start thinking about understanding these mobile shoppers more and finding better ways to meet their needs. So toward that goal, we just conducted a study, and I'm going to turn it over to Rob to share a little bit about that study and then take us through another shopper journey.
Great, thanks, Allison. So now I'm going to drill down on the role of mobile devices and how it's changed the shopper journey. And to get us thinking about it, let's take a look at Miriam on her path to purchase for fitness equipment. One thing that's worth noting, as you listen to the video, our approach to tracking this journey was actually tracking internet behavior through click streams over the period of a couple months, and then also doing some deep dive qualitative amongst those individuals and some quantitative. So there's a lot of robust data behind the journeys that you're seeing today when we present. So now let's take a listen.
Miriam was on her mobile on Black Friday. The day after Thanksgiving was when Amazon was offering hourly deals. But because she was at work, she had to check them on her mobile. On her lunch break, she sees an offer for Zumba equipment. She's never heard of this exercise program before, but her interest in keeping fit leads her to click for more details. She reads the description of the equipment and decides it sounds appealing. With her enthusiasm raised and the offer being available only for a limited time, Maria decides to purchase the equipment on her mobile there and then. Because Amazon already has her payment details, she's happy to buy them on her mobile then. Unfortunately, she discovers that the deal has run out of time. She's so disappointed that when she gets home that evening, she decides to buy the equipment anyway, and goes on her laptop to find it again, despite it no longer being on sale.
So you can see Miriam was pretty dogged in trying to get that product. So she used her mobile, but really had to stick with it. Sometimes we're not that lucky, and we don't have someone who's as experienced and loyal with Amazon or whatever retailer is trying to sell the product, and they may not stick with it. So it's definitely important to think about how to make the process more seamless, easy, and informative to get conversion rates up throughout the process. One thing that we're finding in general, as mobile comes into play, online is just really becoming more and more settled, is that consumers are really, there's a wide agreement that they're feeling in control in the shopping process. They're really learning how to shop more efficiently, and they're using new information sources. Also getting pretty heavy agreement on people relying on friends and family. So technology isn't always just relying on the device, but it could be a channel for better communications with other people. So it's still the people come into play. So on the next slide, we're going to take a look at how technology is growing. I'm sure you've all seen smartphone ownership ramping up, and it's pushing to nearly 50% of consumers. And then also tablet ownership actually almost doubled over the last holiday season. So we're seeing pretty sharp increases in growth in tablets, and that hasn't slowed down. And another key point is that when we look at smartphone owners and tablet owners, not all of them are using the help in the shopping process, but a pretty good proportion of them. It's 4 in 10 smartphone owners are using their smartphone to help them shop, and also over half of tablet owners are using their tablet to help them shop. But interestingly enough, almost half of tablet owners are also using their smartphone to help them shop. So this tablet-smartphone combo is really powerful, and each plays a different role in the process, some overlapping, but without a doubt having more mobile devices and different approaches is contributing to a different shopper journey. So in the next slide, we're going to break down how that looks by generation, and you can see that below 35, you see some pretty significant numbers in consumers who are using a mobile device to help them shop. But then it really begins tailing off in the 35 to 49 age group, and then drops precipitously once you get in the 50-plus group. But one thing that's interesting is the tablet numbers. They hang in there a little bit better. It's definitely a big drop, but we were thinking that perhaps tablets have some usability advantages for those 50-plus. So keep an eye on the role of tablets, not only among those who are below 50, but it could play a big role above 50 as well.
A couple of questions that just came in. One,
sure.
Is this information U.S.-centric or global?
Good question. All of the data that we're showing in this section are U.S.-centric. The journeys were actually gathered in a number of countries, UK, Germany, US, and China. So most of the journeys span a pretty broad array. Some of the journeys are from the UK.
Okay. Another question. On slide 5, is there a quantified relationship between the amount spent or conversion rate indices for smartphone and tablet shoppers compared to the general population?
That is a good question. No, I don't think there's a specific index on a conversion rate for those who are shopping with a smartphone. But we do take a look at a phenomenon coming up in a couple slides called showrooming, where in a sense you have almost the opposite of conversion. So we'll talk a little bit about that soon. We are seeing this phenomenon across several categories. I know someone mentioned an interest in seeing this by grocery, and here you are, food and beverage, 27% are using it to help in mobile shopping, health and beauty, 23%, home improvement, 18%, consumer electronics is at the top, but also clothing is quite high at 33%. So definitely some pretty heavy engagement across a variety of categories. And moving along, here is a really good example of Tesco is taking a pretty nifty approach to use of mobile. So consumers can place an order, their shopping order on their mobile, and then schedule a pickup and actually pick it up. So say you're coming home from the beach and you want to get your shopping trip, but you don't have to wait. You can go to Tesco after you've scheduled your pickup and just pick up your groceries right there. Land's End and Sears and Kmart. Those are a couple examples of companies that are doing a good job in rewards on the mobile. And we'll talk a little bit about overall general market data on receptivity to these types of rewards.
Here's another good question, Rob. Mobile, arguably more than any other development, stands to disintermediate traditional retailers from their customers. What are the implications for how manufacturers employ shopper marketing best practices to influence customers in partnership with their brick-and-mortar retailers?
I'm glad you asked that. That is actually the topic of the section that Bill will be covering. So that's a big focus area. So if you can hang in there a little bit, because we're going to be covering that. I don't want to steal Bill's thunder.
Okay.
And moving to the next slide, we look at how consumers are using the mobile, and there's a lot of doom and gloom about disintermediation. There's a lot of doom and gloom about just strictly price shopping and getting the best deal possible. But we're seeing a much broader use of the mobile. So yes, their price comparison is key. They're couponing. They're looking at products before they purchase online. They're doing a lot of the things that could possibly pose a threat to the bottom line. But they're also they're gathering information. They're engaging with marketers on via social media. For example, liking a retailer on Facebook. We also give a couple examples later of how certain retailers are making the best of this. And then also they're looking for help with the location. So finding a store or finding the product they want and where's the best place to get it. Checking in, which kind of spans social media and location. And also transactions. So we're seeing some beginnings of transaction on the mobile device as well, although this is a little bit in an earlier stage. So we actually dipped into some of these topics about a year and a half ago, and we saw the numbers were more in the single digits. So this is starting to grow. And then showrooming, what's happening in this regard. So there are consumers out there who are seeing a product in the store and then purchasing it on their phone from another retailer or online competitor. So that's definitely happening. If you look at it against the total general pop, it's 5% of the general pop. But if you look at it among those who use a mobile phone or tablet to help them shop, it's actually 22%. So it definitely is a rising tide, and it requires some attention to engaging with the consumer and creating a unique experience, which we'll talk about in a lot of detail in the next section.
Okay, another quick question, Rob. Do you have any insight on triggering impulse purchase behavior in a digital environment?
That's a good question. We're actually we have another study on the horizon that's going to capture that because that definitely warrants some additional deep dive. But to date, we haven't gotten to that topic explicitly.
Okay.
And next topic, co-creation is something that we've seen is a really strongly recommended best practice to try and engage with the consumer and differentiate in this very price-conscious world where there's perfect information. How do you differentiate? Well, you could have the consumer play a role in creating the product that they want. Nike has done a good job of that with Design Your Shoes, and Lego's actually doing a good job with that with designing your own Lego set. And we actually saw this number of consumers who say they'd be more loyal if a brand or retailer lets them have input. It's tripled since last year when we measured it. So this co-creation is definitely a growing trend that consumers really welcome. And on the next slide, let's take a look at the younger consumers. They're actually more open to the idea of having their visits tracked on a website and having their experience customized. So for them, it's really a value exchange. So it's really, I'm getting something in exchange for sharing my information, and what I'm getting is customization. So definitely much stronger agreement amongst those who are under 35, and it quickly begins to tail off after that. We also took a look at the mobile wallet and using Google Wallet as an example for consumers to really have a specific live example in the market to latch on to. And in general, we're seeing that consumers are very interested and would definitely use a loyalty card or a rewards or coupon feature on a mobile wallet like Google Wallet. However, the payment card feature, you begin to get some rejection there. If you look at the general pop, it's about 28% who say they definitely would not use, and only 10% definitely would use. And among smartphone or tablet owners, it does rise, but still only 18% would definitely use their phone as their next phone as a payment card. So it's beginning to warm up, but it's still going to take some time. And usually those more lower impact functions like a loyalty or reward card are a good place to start and get your presence out there for the time when transactions really go great guns. So on the next slide, we see similar trends in the world of finance. So we looked at finance and banking just to get another perspective. And checking account balances, that's one thing. People are engaged in that on their mobile to a great extent, but it begins to tail off when you're actually talking about buying something in a store. And we're talking about this younger group, and without a doubt, when you compare them to those 35 plus, they in fact are a little bit less loyal and they're shopping around, but they're also more likely to say they would be more loyal if they could have input and take the co-creation route. Also, they're open to customization and having website tracking allow them a greater customized experience. And of course, they're using social networks to help them shop. But there's certainly some pushback amongst the broad audience, and part of it's complexity, and part of it is just a concern over privacy, and then also people just feel that it's just too much work. So expect some pushback. It's not for everybody, but keep it up. So I'm going to hand it back over to Bill Romania and Allison, and they'll talk a little bit about some of the best practices. But first, we'll start with a video to show another journey.
The Purchase Journey Map is a system created to visualize and explore exactly how a consumer arrived at a purchase. Take Jess for example. Jess is sat at home one evening watching the TV and casually browsing the internet on her laptop. A Yeo Valley ad on the TV catches her attention, and she enjoys it so much she wants to show her husband. The ad finishes with a call to sing along on Facebook. This is the trigger for Jess's purchase journey. Searching on Facebook for the brand's page, she finds the advert in the video section and shows it to her husband. Jess, realizing she doesn't know much about their products, clicks on the info page. There she finds a list of products and a link to the Yeo Valley's main website. On the main site, she reads the product description of several products, which sound very appealing. She goes across to Tesco's website, where she checks out their prices. This marks the end of her research stage. Jess prefers to conduct her grocery shopping in store, so a couple of days later, whilst doing her weekly shop, she purchases some Yeo Valley yogurts. This is a simple example from trigger to purchase. However, other purchase journeys can be more complex, involving multiple products, more research activity, and the inclusion of other devices, such as smartphones or tablets, for research or purchases.
Great, thanks. And it's interesting as we think about that. 2 years ago, how many of us would have bet that we'd be talking about social media and mobile shopper marketing when it comes to basic perishable consumer foods? So clearly we've come a long way, and there's been a radical change over the last year or two, and our prediction is it's just the tip of the iceberg, if you will. So what we're going to do now for the next 15 minutes or so is shift gears, and we've been sharing a lot of data, and yes, some of it's high macro and total industry, but it's also important to look at things beyond your individual categories. The videos there's been some interesting questions about these videos, and I just do want to make one comment. The videos won't be shared in the PowerPoint file after the conference the same way that you can download them, but they're available on YouTube. So if you search GFK Shopper Journey on YouTube, they tell me you'll be able to find them, and I'll tell you that I found them myself. So if I can find them, I guarantee you can find them. So shifting into some examples, and we gave this presentation yesterday at a client, and one of the marketing folks said, but I need practical things from you that I can do tomorrow. And so that's where we're going for a few minutes. And if you think about shopper marketing in a digital age and moving away from digital marketing and mobile marketing as phrases we even use, there are some best practices that we think are particularly important. And not surprisingly, they're the same best practices that are important in old-fashioned shopper marketing. And so it's not a new discipline. It's a new language and a new set of tools and a new set of communication vehicles and a new way of thinking. But a lot of the tried and true practices we've learned over the years are still really important. And we're going to walk you through a couple of examples just as kind of thought starters. So the first one is know me. And yes, we're insights people and, professed data geeks in what we think is important. But more and more as we go mobile as shoppers, it's important to get inside our heads and put yourself in the first person of the shopper. Know me, understand my emotion, reflect the roles, uncover what I need, when I need it, where I am. Those kinds of dynamics are really important.
In this next slide, you'll start to see some examples of this that we've all seen, whether it be Groupon, Foursquare, Walmart's page on Facebook. The key thing here is that there are plenty of opportunities, whether they be your own loyalty card database or whether they be the activity of your shoppers within social media, to know them. And this is a generation or generations, that now expect one-to-one marketing. So it's pretty much, as far as they're concerned, the end of many-to-one, massive television campaigns. They expect you to use the information that they offer up freely to tailor offerings to them, to get to know them. It's almost like we've gone back to the neighborhood store where everybody knew everybody. It's kind of using the great internet as the friendly local neighborhood. On the next one, as you take this into the realm of now some pretty exciting technology in GPS, all of our smartphones, all of our tablets, they have the capacity, with these location-based services, for our activities and our locations to be tracked. That may sound a little big brother, but many of our shoppers are willing and glad to allow you to track them if it generates a benefit, if it tailors offerings to them. And the opportunities here are astonishing in that someone mentioned the questions about impulse. Well, what's better than knowing that when the temperature is over 80 degrees and your shopper is not very far from one of your stores, you can trigger a soft drink purchase. It also allows the opportunity to understand really how they shop, whether it's how the different stores they go to en route to yours, but also how they shop within the store. The layout of your average supermarket hasn't changed that much in a long time, and there's an opportunity to tailor that layout to how people actually shop it as their patterns and their habits evolve.
So the next principle of Engage Me is one that at the surface is so simple, right? Create an experience, pull me in, use my senses, bring romance to the shopping environment. Well, you start to think about those things and link them to how do you cause me to take action? How do you get me to buy something? And it gets a lot harder. So, and particularly, it's one thing in a store, it's even harder in a mobile environment.
Yeah, one of the best examples we see, and I think most of you have seen this, is Williams-Sonoma. Whether you're in their mobile app, their catalog, their iPad app, their website, or in the stores, it's all the same. It is a connection between the love and the emotions that are tied to food and entertainment and being that good husband or wife, and to the products that they're offering. It is all tied together, it is always consistent, and it is always relevant to the most recent holiday. It's a very powerful, very consistent message, and this obviously resonates.
Moving on to the next principle, making it easy for me. Think about some of the things we talked about in mobile and the number of sites and applications people are using to shop. Mobile runs the risk of making shopping harder than it's ever been, and at the same time it can make things an awful lot easier.
I think one of the good examples of this is Best Buy. These could be very, very difficult shops to shop, but they're not, despite their size, because they're organized logically, it's clear what's where, the signs are easy to follow, and most interesting and I think appropriate is the apps that they use echo that. So they're easy to use, well organized, and clear. So they're making the shopping process simpler, and they're making it much more aligned with how people actually do shop the store and do shop the categories.
Tell it to me straight. In the old world, marketers could kind of say whatever they want, and as long as it wasn't reputed with fact, it was okay. And that's not the case anymore. And shoppers get it. They want to hear the facts. They need a consistent message. And if your product's not going to do something, don't say it will, because I'm going to find out. And you got to stay positive in the whole game.
It's whether we like it or not. It's all about transparency. These tools can be had on every mobile device. So not only can they check with their friends on social media, but they can check the price, they can check the latest news, they can check the recalls. So if you have something to hide, you're not going to be able to hide it for long. I mean, we all have seen the controversies, whether it's Susan B. Komen or others. You can't hide bad news. But the flip side of that is good news gets out very, very fast. So this transparency is a reality, and it's one that we can leverage to our advantage.
So making me feel smart, it's very much linked to transparency, and it's really tying together a lot of themes we talked about. Today's shoppers want to walk out. Remember, they're wired, they're competitive, and they're optimistic. So if those are the principles in their head when they're shopping, we want to make sure they walk out saying, gosh, I used my information, I shopped well, I'm proud of what I did, I'm confident about my choices, and really validated and empowered my decisions.
Yeah. The example here is from Walmart. These are the no-contract phones. It's probably not a segment that most of us play in, but it's a simple, elegant solution for people who need a phone, fixed incomes, low incomes, generally don't have credit. There's nothing insulting about it. There's nothing condescending. In fact, in a way, it's very uplifting and makes it incredibly easy for them to do what's normally a fairly complex transaction.
I think the other point, too, about really reinforcing the value and communicating in a simple way, this is a category that's used to high touch and high service, and they're not getting that in the Walmart section here. So it's really been one of the point-of-sale materials and the online communication need to communicate everything about the program in a very sweet, simple way. So less is more. Information overload. We're all tired. We're all busy. We've probably all got about 74 emails while you've been listening to us talk. And so cutting through the clutter is becoming increasingly important. And things, whether it's a physical store, a virtual store, or a mobile app, really understand how to lay things out simply. What messages are you trying to communicate? How do you carry what I want, or make me think you're carrying what I want in new and different ways? And we've got lots of examples of this. This one we particularly like from Vodafone in Europe. Their world used to be about selling phones, and you walked into the stores and there was a lot of clutter and noise about the different phones, and not necessarily even leveraging the brand potential of that equipment. And the new Vodafone concepts that are very consistent across Europe and remarkably consistent with their websites and their mobile communication, they're not selling phones. They sell them, but it's not what you see first. you see the message, you see the red world, you see the service, you see the future, you see connectivity, you see a very different message. They're selling more product, but they're showing a lot less of it, and they're doing it in a very different way. So we thought that was a really good example of less is more. Not all of us have the luxury of not displaying as much product or holding inventory on the shelf, but it's aspirational and something to think about.
And then we also see this in simple things like that are transactional. So whether it's Walmart or some of the other retailers' online shopping lists, making it simpler and easier to buy more things, or Starbucks taking their purchase card and moving it onto an app. So not only can you get on your flight with your iPhone, you can also buy a coffee and keep it as simple and speed up the line and get more people through the stores, and everybody's happy.
And then keeping it fresh. This is one that was really hard for particularly large brick-and-mortar retailers to figure out. How do I change it up, right? In a world where planograms are reset once a year and millions of dollars are spent for just one set of signage. And so technology can really be our friend here and help create a sense of discovery and making sure that we're feeling unique in what we do.
Just a few years ago, consumer-created ads were all the rage off of YouTube, and there are various campaigns that worked, and whether it's the paint the NASCAR or come up with a new ad or the new ditty, those are now become almost common. Well, now we have co-creation in terms of using that loyal shopper to help create the next package, and in this case, this was the new Heineken bottle. So not only did they engage their customers, but they also ended up with a lot of free work, and they ended up with a really cool bottle, to use the brand manager's own words. And this kind of thing is just purely natural because, again, we're dealing with people who are posting hundreds of thousands of videos a day. So the concept of helping to create something for a brand that they're engaged with is natural, and everybody wins.
So that was a brief tour through some of the things that we think are particularly important for you all to think about. And particularly important as we're changing our gears from in-store marketing to truly interactive, integrative, mobile approaches to building brands at retail. We've pretty much come to the end of our formal presentation. Miraculously, we actually do have a few minutes for questions if there are any more.
Sure. Allison, a few questions came in along the way that we didn't get to. I can ask them at this time. One is, how do you evaluate mobile shopper marketing compared to more traditional methods?
That's the big wow question, which is metrics and evaluation across all things shopper marketing. Our perspective and what we're excited about mobile is it gives us the potential for immediate feedback. And it's actually, there's more data available. It's more quantifiable data available when you start to go mobile and online than there is in the stores. And the question is, how do you mine it? How do you tap into it? And how do you create almost a constant pulse of metrics in your dashboard, which this mobile gives you greater opportunity for? The challenge is getting access to that data, and that's all still emerging.
Okay. Another question is, how do you use mobile in shopper research?
Hey, Rob, do you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, there are a number of different ways we can use mobile. I assume you mean using the actual mobile for the consumer, so actually using the device as a way to understand what the consumer is doing. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. That was just the question that was posed.
Okay. So one example could be tracking their behaviors in terms of their location. So similar to online, that would require some level of opt-in. And another way to use mobile is, if having that instant response. So if they're in a store, capturing, what they're seeing, capturing the impulse. So having them answer a few questions more spur of the moment gets immediate feedback and having a fresh response. So definitely a variety of ways.
Okay, excellent. How would you compare the different retailers in different classes of trade as far as mobile savvy, whether like food, drug, mass, and electronics, et cetera? Or is any one class much ahead of the others?
Ooh, I always get nervous when you don't know who's on the phone. Rob showed the chart which talked about category development in use of mobile for shopping, and no surprise, consumer electronics was there first, heavily driven by the category, the user, and Best Buy. So there's a big, first one out of the gate advantage there. But we're seeing a lot of really cool things happening across all classes of trade by big retailers and by small retailers. And so I wouldn't think, I wouldn't be so blanket as to say, oh, grocery's behind the game or drugs ahead. It really isn't that way. It's really retailer by retailer. There's where there need things happening. The real powerful ones to us are those that are tying in their loyalty card database into their mobile application so that they can take the history of sales and what's happened in stores, online, and link that to the card and start to create really tailored micro-marketing. I mean, think about CVS Extra Care as an example of having a long-standing success with their Extra Bucks and Beauty Club and all the different elements of Extra Care. Well, now that they're going on mobile, it's so much more powerful. I have it with me. I mean, someday they'll be able to know where I went before and after every CVS I go to, what I bought, and I don't know, they'll probably know when I used it. So laying the pipe now from a retailer standpoint is really important to get historical data and to start to jump in. And that's really our advice to folks is this is a scary space. For those folks that don't have infrastructure and apps and new ways of looking at it, it's not that hard to develop some basic starter apps. The key is to think about what value are you going to bring your shoppers. And if you're not going to bring value, then maybe the philosophy is maybe you don't want to develop it yourself, but you want to go to where the traffic is and start with things like Facebook and make sure that your Facebook page is mobile friendly and go to, tap into Foursquare and start experimenting that way to build some comfort, to get some points on the board for senior management while you're starting to build something else for the long run.
Yeah, another piece is also keeping it fresh. So while there needs to be some level of consistency, people need, continual reasons to come back to their phone to engage with you. So, keeping it fresh is point number 7 on the marketing manifesto is definitely critical when it comes to the digital world.
Okay, those are all the questions that came in. If the audience has further questions, the contact information for Allison, Rob, and Bill is on the screen. Email or call them. And Rob, Allison, and Bill, any closing thoughts before we sign off?
No, really, just thank you all for listening. I know webinars are a wonderful format, but they're also a little tough. So if there are questions, we're here. We're committed to an ongoing stream of research under our Future Buy platform to really understand where things are going. You're about to get a quick survey, and one of the things is what else do you want to know and how else can we help you learn? A couple of you are asking for category-specific data. Send those types of things back in your online survey, and as we look at the next rounds of this industry benchmarking, we'll do what we can to include them.